I struggled to get around. I ended up getting a cane and using a cane to get around because my knees were so weak. And also, I was like swollen like a fat pig, so I didn't want to go out in public or like I didn't feel motivated to go. And I also had fatigue. So it was really hard, and I just felt like I was falling behind everyone else. Hi, my name is Chaylee. I'm a 20-year-old with psoriatic arthritis. I was diagnosed in January of 2023, and I live in Idaho. At first, it was really hard, I'm not gonna lie, and just dealing with the symptoms. But then once I got treatment, things got so much better, and also just finding a community of people. Obviously, I don't want to have a disease, but it's gotten better. It all started in the summer of 2022. I just graduated high school, and it was the first time I was living on my own, and just things started happening to me. I would say probably the main symptom I had that was really concerning was fatigue, because typically in the summer I like to go out and do stuff, but I mean, I couldn't leave my couch. I was so tired all the time, and there was no reason for me to be tired. And then it just started progressing, so I had really weak joints. And the biggest sign was I just got so swollen. My face was really fat. My fingers are still really fat today, but worse than this, and like kind of like a red tone. So that was kind of the first symptoms that happened. Actually, going in, I did think I had lupus because my mom has lupus and other autoimmune diseases. And so that was kind of what I thought. So I went through my primary doctor, got referred to a rheumatologist, which was my mom's rheumatologist at the time. He didn't even look at me, didn't do basically anything, and diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, which was not an accurate diagnosis. And I was put on gabapentin, and it made me feel really out of it. So I was trying to attend college. It was my first week, and then I was put on gabapentin, and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. I felt honestly like high. Like I just felt out of it and high. And so that week I dropped out of college. I forfeited all my scholarships. I had a full ride because I couldn't go, and they told me you're going to have to come back sometime. This isn't going to work because I couldn't even make it to class. And then to get a proper diagnosis, about 2 months later, I moved near Boise for better doctors. So I moved 6 hours away from where my hometown is to get a diagnosis, waited to get into a rheumatologist for a couple months, and then finally, the day of, I got that diagnosis in January of 2023. It was really weird. I've had psoriasis on my scalp since I was like a preteen. Like, it's been there forever. I got diagnosed by a dermatologist back then, and I could never get rid of it. I've tried topicals, everything like that. So it was just kind of a part of my normal life. I never thought anything of it. So then when I went to the rheumatologist in Boise, I like walk in, and then she's looking and she's listening to all my symptoms. She has me take off my shoes, and she goes, "Do you have psoriasis?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And, like, I don't know what that is about. And then she was like, "I think you have psoriatic arthritis." And so then we did multiple x-rays, and like, it was really weird. I had a ultrasound done on my fingers and my arms, and they found that I had tendonitis and arthritis. And so then she was like, "Yeah, you have it." And they ran blood tests, and my inflammation levels were extremely high. Honestly, it was a big relief because it was just that first step. But in the same thing, I was just like, why didn't I know this disease existed? Like, why didn't someone tell me it existed? Because I think it's like, I don't know the exact statistic, so I'm not gonna say that, but I think it's like 30% of people with psoriasis can develop psoriatic arthritis. So I was just annoyed that nobody even told me. And it also was weird because my mom has like a combination of autoimmune diseases, and this is one she didn't have. So it was just so strange. I still struggle with it. It's hard now, years away, seeing my friends almost to graduate college, and I haven't done essentially anything. No, I work, but it's still disappointing. But just finding community and other people like me, and realizing that even though I wanted to go to college, maybe that wasn't even the right path for me. So even though it hurts, I can deal with it. So during that period of time, I struggled to get around. I ended up getting a cane and using a cane to get around because my knees were so weak. And also I was like swollen like a fat pig, so I didn't want to go out in public, or like I didn't feel motivated to go, and I also had fatigue. So it was really hard, and I just felt like I was falling behind everyone else. Yeah, it just was not a good time. First, it wasn't as smooth sailing. They put me on Celebrex, which didn't do anything. I didn't have side effects, but it didn't help in any way. And then I was put on methotrexate, and a lot of people really don't like methotrexate, but it did. I don't like it either, but it did get me out of that. So methotrexate is a low form of chemotherapy, and it has a lot of bad side effects. So it helped my joint pain and got me kind of not normal, but better, to the point where I could actually work and do different things instead of just, laying on the couch for a year like I was. Um, but it wasn't perfect. I had a lot of dental issues with it and dry mouth, and I felt out of it the day after I took it. Um, yeah, my hair was falling out a little bit, so it wasn't perfect. And now, just this past year, I've been put on Humira, which is an injectable, and I take it every 2 weeks. And that has been probably the most beneficial so far. I do still wish that I had something to clear up my psoriasis, because that is still there on my scalp, but I've heard that scalp psoriasis is the hardest to get rid of. And so, but I've been used to it since my preteen years, so I think it's just, I'd rather not have the joint pain, which is, the biggest issue for me. It's improved a lot from when I first got sick. I couldn't do anything. I'm not in college, but I have a full-time job. I have another part-time job. I'm getting married in May. So, like, there's a lot going on. I want to go back to college eventually, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I feel like I'm so much more productive and I can get things done. I'm not constantly just worried about, can I walk from here to the door? Like, that's, like, obviously I still have flare-ups and issues, but it's not on my brain every single day like, oh, I'm in extreme pain. I definitely feel it coming on. Most of the time, I can kind of tell, like, even before I feel it coming on, like, I'm like, oh, I know. Like, if it's really cold weather, I struggle with that. If I'm stressed out, which sometimes I get stressed out, especially wedding planning, like, I can feel it coming, and it definitely sucks. Sometimes it puts me out for a couple days. I mean, I still, now I'm a little better about managing it and getting up even despite the pain. I used to kind of dwell in the pain a little bit, admittedly, but now I can get up and, go about my day. But I still struggle. I drop things all the time with my hands because they're always puffed up. I struggle getting rings on. And then on the worst days, I wear like compression gloves and stuff like that. The first thing I did when I first got diagnosed is I started an Instagram where I made spoon jewelry, which was my way of connecting with people with chronic illnesses, because, there's the spoon theory, which is about energy levels. And so that was my first thing that got me, back kind of on track of my life. But then now it's kind of changed. I don't do that anymore. And I'm a part of a group called the Young Patients Autoimmune Research and Empowerment Alliance, really long title, but shortened YP area, which is just a group of young patients, and we help try to disseminate research to other young patients and make research more accessible, because research is so important in managing our diseases and trying to make informed decisions. And then also my day job, I work at a charter school, and I get to teach novel studies to third through fifth graders. And that's great because I just love writing and I love novels. I read over 100 books a year. And yeah, it's just fun seeing them excited for books and that I love. And then I also, on the side, am trying to write my own books and get published. So it's kind of a lot of different hobbies that have gotten me to a better point and a better mindset. It's been really important. Living in Idaho in a rural community, it's really hard to find other people like me. And there's a lot of, I wouldn't say judgment towards me, but like when I tell people I have arthritis, they're like, "What do you mean? You're 20. You can't have arthritis." And they kind of laugh it off, like especially older people, which is kind of who I'm surrounded with. So finding an online group or people through social media that relate is just really important to me because I can see that I'm not alone and that they're going through the same things and we can share our stories back and forth or help each other with questions because medical stuff gets really complicated, like especially insurance in the US. Also, help with the Young Patients Autoimmune Research and Empowerment Alliance, and I wrote blogs for them and other stuff. But just in my day to day, like I try to, like just my students, I try to educate them about, not judging other people, especially because I typically don't have psoriasis, like very visibly, obviously on my scalp, which sometimes is visible when it bleeds. Sometimes in the winter, I get it around my mouth. So, I always have questions from kids, what's that? And I just kind of am like, okay, if I can't change it in like 3 seconds, then we don't point it out. And so just kind of educating people on those things and just advocating. I'm also going to a conference for the Arthritis Foundation this summer. It's been really important, especially when I'm even unsure of myself, just being sure of my own feelings about my body. Like, methotrexate got me to where I am today, but it's not the perfect drug. And so it took me a long time to go to my rheumatologist and say, can we try something different? Because I was so scared. But I also knew that I had to try something different. And so it's just learning those small things of how to stand up for yourself, especially as a young adult. I've always felt kind of secondhand. I still bring my mom to my rheumatologist appointments sometimes. But I mean, we also have the same rheumatologist now too. So, we kind of double book it on the same day. What I want everyone to really think about is, even though I've talked a lot about productivity in this, really not basing your self-worth and your mental state on your productivity, because when you're sick you can't do as much. And even though now I'm happy that I can do so much, I think it's really important to love yourself even when you can't get out of bed and can't do those things, because that was my biggest struggle, because I felt like I was so behind my peers, that everyone's doing better than me. When you look on social media, everyone is doing better. But those are only a highlight reel of how their life is doing. Like, I did not post for that year. I was lying on the couch because I didn't want my friends or people to know that's what I was doing, because then I'd be called lazy and like, what are you doing with your life? Like, you had a full ride scholarship and now you're just sitting on the couch. You moved back in with your mom doing nothing. But it shouldn't be that way, because our worth is not based on what we do. I feel like the most emotional part of my diagnosis was honestly navigating it from an adult perspective, because I was just now becoming an adult. So like, it's heavy because of the symptoms already, but then it's worse when you're trying to navigate going to doctor appointments alone, figuring out insurance, figuring out how to talk to doctors, figuring out how to research my illness in a way that's not going to scare me and give me more anxiety. So I think that's the biggest part, is not having, I mean, I do have my mom because she's gone through this, which is why I think I came out better than most people with a better mindset. But it's definitely hard when you're alone and you're trying to navigate all those different things at the same time. My last message would be just to keep on going, and when things get hard, even though you might not think that it's the right path for you and that it's not going to be a good life, that life really does change your perspective, and things do get better, even not perfect, but better.